gave some examples of writing, and I wasn't sure what grade or what age these students were, but then I went under and looked at the evaluation criteria. And the first one says, this response is generally focused on snowy weather. An organizational pattern includes use of basic transitional devices, in addition, then also. And I said, well, there's a word, I don't know the...
Well, just in the interest of time, because we have a limited time, is there a specific question you wanted to pose to?
Yes, I see that, and again, it went on to say that our FCAT scores are low, so we have to drop standards. And there was a cartoon that I think summed it up beautifully, which says, so class, what have we learned from our FCAT experience this year? And the student says, if at first you don't succeed, lower your standards. So I'm concerned about what standards our students are being held to, and I see what has been, at least to the people I've been talking to, the people I've been reading, a general dumbing down of education in this country, and I certainly see this as an example, and I'm concerned about it to the extent that, are you concerned about it, and is this something that you see fit to change?
Okay, thank you. First of all, you know, the criteria was changed as a result of several factors. One of the factors was students were scoring too high on the test. There were too many students that were scoring above what the state felt that, in all fairness, students should be scoring. And so, I don't know whether or not this article states it or not, but the standards were actually, the cut scores were actually raised this year. Are you aware of that?
Yes, it said that, but...
Okay, and the fact that, as far as the punctuation, I think spelling, I think grammar, I think punctuation is extremely important. Students need to know that. In the past, students have been graded, and they have not, on their writing scores, have not been graded on spelling, punctuation, and grammar, which the fact that that was set up by the state. That wasn't anything that Lee County's, that wasn't any of our criteria, but instead it was the state's. So the important focus was, does the student understand cause and effect? Does the student understand how to relate a particular passage that they have read? Does it, like this year, there was one of the writing prompts was, explain what your experience would be like riding a camel through the desert. And I've heard educators talk about the fact that here in Southwest Florida, students may not even know what a desert looks like. They've never been to a desert. They've heard about it, but is this really realistic as far as putting this in a passage for a test? As far as dumbing down the test, when the cut scores were actually raised up, one of the things that I likened it to was the fact that, if you get too many lawyers, are you going to change the cut score for attorneys that are taking the LSAT or that are passing the bar exam? Are you going to say, okay, well, we've got too many lawyers, so let's raise the score. Let's no longer let this many in. Instead, let's raise that score that they've got to meet in order to become a full-fledged attorney. Same thing with medical school. And that's basically what has happened here. Are the scores what we want them to be? No. In fact, we've got a lot of work that we actually can be doing. We've got, some of our lowest performing students that, that we need to address the needs of those students, get things in place that actually help them to perform higher. And, as far as your question, I don't know if I've answered it or not, but yes, I'm not sure that the teachers let the students know that grammar, punctuation, and spelling would actually be counted on this test. That's why they had to go back and say, okay, well, maybe we didn't tell the people this. Maybe we didn't make it absolutely clear, so maybe we need to change it, because if we don't, it's not really changing it. It's just going back to, they're going to grade it on the same standard that they had graded it on before. And now they're going to tell everybody, okay, next year we're going to use punctuation, spelling, grammar, and that will be part of the evaluation piece.
But forgetting the FCAT, do you feel that it's appropriate for a teacher who's teaching children how to write not to include spelling, grammar, syntax, punctuation, that there's some parts of that that are okay to, you can spell it as these two examples atrociously demonstrated, that these kids don't know how to spell, and as I say, I don't know what grade.
Right.
To how.
And I didn't read those, so if I looked at them, I could tell you what, what grade it was. It's probably, I would say it's either 3rd, 8th, or 10th. One of those 3 grades is what it is, because those are the grades that are being tested. I think that punctuation and spelling is very important. I think that one of the things that students have gotten very used to is technology, and it's very easy to push that spell check button. And then, whether or not punctuation is being taught. I know that when we used to receive extra money for writing in the schools, and we were able to put more programs in place. We've had to do away with a lot of that because they removed the money for the writing. In fact, at one time, Florida scored as high or higher than any state in the United States on our writing scores. And it was because of all the extra money that we put into the curriculum for writing. We had extra teachers. And while I understand that you're saying, is it right for teachers not to teach grammar, spelling, punctuation, I don't know that they are grading that on every single thing, but it's something that is very important that should be graded. And, teachers have had their planning time taken away in the upper grades, and because they've had that planning time taken away, teachers have a lot of students in the classroom, and maybe it's something that they're not doing, and we need to do a better job of making sure that all of the students' work is actually checked for punctuation, spelling, grammar.
But that's the responsibility of the teacher.
And that's what I said. Maybe we need to make sure that every single assignment is being addressed that way. If they are not addressing it, then we need to make sure that they do in the future.
Now, speaking of teachers, Mrs. Dozier, you yourself are a former teacher and administrator.
Yes.
One of the statistics that Dr. Burke often shares in his public speaking is that 47% of teachers leave within the first 5 years of joining the profession. Mm-hmm. What ideas might you have to try to counteract that, and why do you think that is?
Well, what do they say? People that can, there are very few people that go into teaching that don't do it because they go into teaching not because it's going to be a big salary, but because it's something they want to do. And they have a passion about it. And we have a lot of teachers, a lot of people that are going into education, and they don't realize the difficulties that they are going to face in the classroom. We have got to find ways that, in fact, one of the questionnaires that I just was answering a couple of days ago was about discipline. We've got to make sure that we support the teachers in the classroom, because morale, if a teacher is not supported when she's got discipline problems with a student, then we've got a situation that we need to make sure that the administration supports that teacher and backs her or him, because if there's a lot of disruption in the classroom, the teacher cannot teach. And this is one of the things that we are hearing, that that people are leaving the field of education because the students are so disruptive. Well, we've got to do a better job as the policymakers to make sure that we have good, concrete policies in place that ensure that we're going to have consistent discipline across the curriculum. And in fact, we were just at the last board meeting, we were talking about our student code of conduct for K through 12. And we were talking about some of the different pieces that we needed to look at. And one of the things that, being a former disciplinarian in the school system, you know, that's one of the things that I talked to Dr. Burke about, is the fact that we need to make sure that we're being consistent across the curriculum, because when we do exit interviews, and this is something that we have started since I've been on the board, because we have so many educators that are leaving the field, we have an exit interview. We find out why. You know, why are you leaving? A lot of times it's, you know, it's simply you know, moving out of this area, but a lot of times it is because they say that their morale is very low, and that they don't feel that they're getting support, they're not being valued. So we've got to look for ways to value teachers, we've got to look for ways to support teachers. And I think those two things will help to keep teachers in the field.